Good morning, Warzone kids. That's my term for those of us like myself. I'm a child sex abuse survivor. Warzone kids is my term for those of us who grew up with a childhood that was more like a low-grade guerrilla war against our psyche, our soul, than it was a supportive nursery. And in the last video, I talked about the Fiery Wigwam. And that's how I think of the healing circles that I have done through Hidden Water Circle. It's an organization that facilitates healing circles by and for child sex abuse survivors. Go watch the last video if you want a longer introduction to it, or why I'm talking about pilgrims and trails and fiery wigwams. Or just watch this one. It'll still work. I talked about my experience of that healing circle as like going into a wigwam with my fellow child sex abuse survivors and finding connection and finding that the lead of my suffering, my heavy pain, and my toil through life had turned into gold through the feeling and the experience of connection with my fellow child sex abuse survivors, with my fellow human creatures. But why is it a fiery wigwam? Why is it a fiery wigwam? That's the challenge that the pilgrims have to go through. And I'll tell you. My experience is that in that healing circle, and I'm a volunteer circle keeper, I'm about to start another healing circle. As a circle keeper, one of the people that helps facilitate the meetings. I keep going back because I find that the more I give to it, the more I get out of it. And the more gold I get. And it seemed to me that matters a lot. The more you put into something, the more you get out of it. That's true in everything you do in life. And I could feel in my heart that the gold I was going to get out of that healing circle was only going to be limited by how much lead I put into it. The healing circle, the process of healing, of learning and becoming what you are, the Western lands, the place of peace and wholeness. You can only get out as much gold as the lead you put in. You put in a pound of lead, you can get a pound of gold out. You put in a gram of lead, you can get a gram of gold out. You put all the lead you have into that wigwam, and it'll all turn to gold. Well, I had that impression real clearly, and my experience has borne that out. But what happens when you put that lead into gold is that you ain't going to get that lead again. That lead will be gone, transmogrified into gold in the fire of the fiery wigwam. Purification by fire is a powerful image. Monks in Vietnam burnt themselves. Iron ore is turned by fire into iron and steel. Gold oozes out of the rocks of gold ore and turns into gold. And in the alchemy of healing and learning to become who we are, the lead turns into gold. And you get to gold, but you have to give up the lead. And that's hard to do. It's hard for me. I was real attached. I talk about sticky ideas that are sticky in your mind. The turpentine toddler from Brer Rabbit stories. I was so attached to my own suffering, to the lead of my own suffering. I was clinging on to that lead like it was already gold. My ideas of myself, my ideas of slogging through life, put my left foot in front of my right foot. Can't nothing get this guy down. Nothing can keep me down forever. I can slog my way through pain and suffering forever. And I can. And I will if I keep hanging on to that lead. Like wearing lead boots. Like divers wear lead boots so they don't float up to the top. Think about that metaphor. You keep on wearing them lead boots, you're going to keep sinking down to the bottom. But I found that in order to get gold, in order to get the gold out, I had to put the lead in. And that meant every time I opened my mouth in that healing circle, every time I open my mouth and I share to be understood, I'm putting lead into the fire. And I'm never going to get that lead again. It's going to be turned into gold. That's what I get out of it. And every time I listen to my fellow child sex abuse survivors, every time I listen to them, to understand them, not to judge them, not to see how I can help them, not to see what smart, wise things can I say, not how to ease their pain and suffering, not how to validate their experience. These are all good things. But when I listen just to understand them, that's it. Just to understand what they're trying to tell me. Somehow that is still me putting lead into the fire so I can get that gold out. Because if I listen to you just to understand what you're saying, that's all. Just to understand what you're saying. Not to evaluate it, not to figure out the answer, not to offer you comfort, not to validate you, but just to understand what you're saying. That's gold. That turns my own lead of my own pain and suffering into gold because I'm setting my lead down and I'm listening to you. And when I reach my hand down to pick up that lead, it's gone. It's molten gold just running at my feet. I don't know how it works that way. I don't know why it works that way. But it's well known. But the folks, the wise witches who've kind of put the Healing Circle program together have known this. And we have policies at Hidden Water. We have agreements with each other not to validate each other's experience explicitly, not to offer comfort explicitly, not to even comment on the details of what someone else shares. Now, maybe I'm not putting that exactly right, but that's the gist that I came away with. I'm just a volunteer. I'm not speaking on behalf of Hidden Water. This is just my experience. We listen to understand, that's all. And the weirdest thing transpires, which is that when you just share your experience to be understood, and when you just listen to someone else's experience, just to understand what they're saying, you get all the validation you could ever have. You get all the comfort that you can actually get. You get more validation out of that dynamic, just sharing to be understood and listening to understand. You get more real, actual, solid gold validation than you do with someone just listening and telling you, I validate your experience. Your experience is valid. I don't know how or why. I get more comfort out of sharing to be understood and listening to understand. I get rest and peace from that. I don't know how it works that way. I don't know why it works that way. I just know for a lot of us it works that way. I don't know how or why the lead turns into gold, but every bit of lead I put in there comes back out as gold. And I want to put a lot of lead into that fire. And I want to get a lot of gold out, because gold is life. Gold is bright, shimmery life of the present day. Lead is heavy suffering. And I find, going beyond healing circles, that the more I live my life in the present moment, just today's miles on the trail, when I do that, I'm also putting lead in the fire, and it comes back as gold. There's a woman called Alice Howell, and she wrote a book. I think I might get the title wrong. It's called The Dove and the Stone, maybe. If I get that wrong, I'll put it in the description. But she's got an image in there of a town where people are heading off in search of the philosopher's stone. In alchemy, the philosopher's stone is what they called the secret ingredient that would turn lead into gold. And you know, like, I imagine that like those boom towns in the gold rush in California or in the Klondike, where everyone in the world, it seemed like everyone in the world is going there for the gold rush. They're going out there to look for solid gold. I imagine this town like that, and everyone's there looking for the philosopher's stone, how to turn lead into gold. And Alice Howell writes in that book somewhere that the philosopher's stone was laying right there in the middle of the road, and people stepped on it and walked on it and drove their wagons on it in search of it out there somewhere. And the philosopher's stone ain't out there somewhere, pilgrim. It ain't in the future. You ain't hunting for the philosopher's stone in the future. Or, well, if you are hunting to find the philosopher's stone in the future, you ain't never gonna find it. If you think the philosopher's stone is buried in the log of your past, the log of your past that you carry around with you, it ain't in there either, pilgrim. The philosopher's stone is right here and now. The philosopher's stone is what people step on and walk on, and what they drive their wagons over as they head off in search of it. That's been this pilgrim's experience. The philosopher's stone is right here and now, in the gold that rosy-fingered dawn is sending over the horizon. And today's miles on the trail. Today's the only day I have to live my life. I'm going to reach down and pick up the philosopher's stone and put it in my pocket and carry it with me. And every bit of lead I find in my heart, every bit of heavy suffering and pain, I'm going to put it in that same pocket with that philosopher's stone, and it's all going to turn into gold. That's why the fiery wigwam is a fiery wigwam. That experience showed me that the more I'm willing to give up of the lead of pain and suffering in my life, the more gold I can find in it. And the philosopher's stone is right there. It's in my pocket. The philosopher's stone is in the ground right at your feet today. I mean right now. I mean right now, right here, right now, today. The philosopher's stone is right in front of you, in the present moment, in your actual life as a war zone kid, whatever that is. You don't need to be any different than you are right now. You have everything you need right here and now, pilgrim. So do I. If you're a war zone kid, I love you, and I feel you, and whatever you'll share with me, I'll understand. And I hope that whatever I share with you, you'll listen just to understand, because I'm sharing just to be understood. As an adult, I live with borderline personality disorder. You look at the checklist, it talks about wildly swinging emotions, black and white thinking, high intensity of feelings. Yeah. I share stuff like this. Maybe it's goofy, maybe it's corny, maybe it's stupid. Maybe I ought to cringe to death. That's okay. I'm doing my best to take the lead out of my heart and let it be turned into gold. And if that means I'm corny and stupid and clownish and cringy, that's all right. That's the price I'm willing to pay because I want that gold. Like they say in the Game of Thrones, you got to pay the iron price. It's a funny thing in life. I'll put it like this. You got to pay the lead price for all the gold you want. The people of the Iron Islands in Game of Thrones, they say they got everything they want because they took it. And when you get something by taking it, they call that paying the iron price for it. When you go buy something at the store, they call that paying the gold price. Well, they were pirates and they were thieving, pillaging kind of people, and I ain't talking about that, but you get the idea. And what I'm going to say about peace and wholeness in the Trail to the Western Lands is you got to pay the lead price for the gold in your heart. You got to pay the lead price. In order to get to gold, you got to take your lead and throw it in the fire. You got to take the lead of everything you think about yourself, everything you're holding on to. You got to take that lead and let it go. Take off them lead boots. They ain't helping you. You got to pay the lead price for all the gold that you want. The more lead you pay, the more gold you'll get. How about that? It's a beautiful day on the trail, Pilgrim. I'm going to look in my pockets, see what kind of lead I got in there. I'm going to take it out because I want all the gold I can get. It's a beautiful day on the trail, Pilgrim. We can get in a lot of miles today, but daylight's burning. Let's get a move on.